What on earth is that? It's a Journey into Comics Network production! Unplugged!
I brought my pencil! Yeah!
Like anything gets to say like you did before. Make it ring, make it bleed, make it really so.
What is up, Deuterinos? Welcome back to Rank 'Em All, that podcast where a couple of folks, friends, sit down, we listen to some albums, we listen to some songs, we go down a discography, we rank every single song on the album, which tabulates up to give us our album ranks. We average up all those, which gives us the master rank for each one. We are continuing down the trek for Alice in Chains. This is our first of 2 bonus episodes for Alice in Chains, so it's not really going to count towards the overall album ranks, but you know what? There's absolutely no way we could go down and rank Alice in Chains without touching on this one. Of course, you guys seen the title. You know what we're doing. This is Unplugged. And today we're ranking it. But who am I? I'm one of your hosts, Brando. And I'm not alone. I'm not alone because I've assembled the team once again. And, of course, cohorted by the one and only Pod Daddy himself, Nate Phillips. Buddy, it has been a minute. Now, not for the listeners out there.
Nate Phillips,
it's
baby.
a good thing. It's a good thing that the lights are not off and you're not shining that on the walls in your room, because then we would be able to see what's all over the pops.
It's like a Jackson Pollock in there.
God.
Brando, we are here. We are doing it. For the listeners, let's just be fucking real for a second, baby. I'm sick or something. Maybe I got allergies. I don't know, but there's a blockage in my nose happening, and I'm trying to get it out by sucking in or shooting out. No, that's really happening. It's bullshit. So if you see me happen to Daenerys Palin myself off the episode and step away, I'm okay. I just don't want to be totally disrespectful and snot all over the dudes while we're ranking this very, very beautiful and special album that we're going to be ranking. Brando, we are obviously not alone. We brought the rest of our Justice Society of America. Obviously joining us, the stepdad of the Journey into Comics Network. He's over there roboting the fuck out of life. What's up, TY?
Hey, man. I've just doing dad shit.
Word, I love that. I too do dad shit. I dabble in the dad shit.
No,
But,
it's nice to finally get back to sit down and record. We've been trying. Again, holidays are tough. The wintertime sucks. And work makes everybody's lives hell sometimes, and we all can see the horizon.
And as we learned, Puxatani Phil was like, "Hey, I'm not telling you how much winter is left. I'm gonna die first." like
It's just
He was like-
that meme where the guy fucking hits a peace sign and then disappears.
Oh God!
but
winter
we're
is
not alone.
Yeah.
You hear his beautiful voice. Let's talk to the man, the myth, the legend. You know him and love him from Journey into Wrestling. We will be back shortly, folks. I promise you. We're almost there. I'm feeling the juices. Welcome back to the show yet again, Rankmaster Buckles.
Don't we?
So the show's 10 minutes old, and Nate's already talking about sucking, blowing, and juices. So we already have a significant issue here.
That's why he's got that light. That way he can clean it
I
out
like
later.
that he's the first one that picked up on sucking, blowing, and juices in my terms, because I didn't even remember saying half of whatever I just was told I said.
That tends to happen when you. Never mind. I like that we're talking about the holidays stopping things, considering it's been, it's March. The holidays was 3 months ago. However, this is the internet. This is the beauty of Zoom and the beauty of all things online. So no time has passed. 3 months is condensed to nothing.
Well, we had met up after the holidays, and right after we were able to get the self-titled episode done. And since then, there was a bit of a time. I got sick, which almost laid me out for like 2 weeks. Man, I canceled so many podcasts during that time because either I was too feverish, either I hadn't eaten. Because that's when I canceled with y'all when we were going to do this like a week or two ago.
That's right, yeah.
Like I had not eaten in like days. I had no appetite and nothing. And it wasn't that COVID disease. I tested negative. She tested negative. She tested negative days later. So there's rumors it could have been influenza A. It was mostly respiratory, but it did knock me on my ass for at least 5 days. And then after that, my voice was shot. I couldn't record. I was sound like this because I had to go to work, for which at work there's a lot of noise, and I got to talk over the noise for people to hear me. And that was my voice needed a rest. And back, we're finally here. Nate, I hope that yours does not turn into anything too horrible. And
I'm gonna fuck it up.
Well,
Judy chopped my fucking influenza A or whatever the shit's happening to me.
he's gonna Judy
was
Bad
all-
Will chop
Oh God.
On a pole.
on a forklift. On a forklift.
Off the top of the forklift.
I want a forklift that lifts a crate of forks. That's what
Look, I gotta say, right out the gate about this album, I need to talk about something. It is, do you guys know, like, it does happen on occasion where, like, musicians who are very, very in tune and happen to also be in the writing phase, who are, like, in the process of dying and they don't even know that their end is coming, will, like, write about their demise. I feel not necessarily because there's not anything really new material on here. We're obviously covering stuff that we've already talked about, but I feel the order of the track listing, specifically the set list they made for this show, is hauntingly screaming Lane, saying like something is coming not good. As beautiful and as haunting as this album is, there is this dark, crazy, ominous cloud over it.
See, I kind of actually feel the exact opposite, man. I feel like it's warmer than most of their studio stuff.
Well, I wouldn't say it's warmer. I'd say it's definitely less angry. You know, because Lane's not really, you know, it's just not, that's not the style and what's going on. But I think to really understand what Nate was saying is you actually have to watch the performance, because there's times, you know, even when like not a lot is going on and Lane is, you know, especially after he takes his sunglasses off, when he's just sitting there, dude, and he just looks so fucking bad.
That
like once you watch that whole performance start to finish, and then you look at the track list and it's like, fuck, man, the dude's like dying in front of me, and you know, woo, America, we ate it up, and then the dude died. So bums me out.
So there is one new song that has not ever been released on here. That's the last track. And so we'll be talking about that. That's the only song that was not something that we've already ranked before. This is a really good mixture of tracks from all across, you know, like other than like with, I don't think there's anything other. Is there nothing from the debut album? I don't think so.
From Facelift.
Facelift. No, there is not. However,
no, I
there
don't think
was. There was supposed to be. There was actually 2 songs that they wanted to do that they cut. One of them was Love, Hate, Love, and We Die Young, which I would have loved to have heard We Die Young
Yeah,
in
definitely.
this setting. But it was for time. They just didn't have enough time to do
Right.
it. And there were a couple
Irony.
songs. Right.
Well, didn't they the whole session took like 3 hours. Like they
Almost.
re-recorded a couple songs a couple of times.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got Me Wrong and Sludge Factor had to be replayed because they messed it up.
Right.
So there's that. And
Yeah, and isn't that wild too? Like just talking about Sludge Factory, and I know that I've throughout the recording of this project, I've occasionally brought up like plays on streaming platforms. So Sludge Factory, a song that had to be re-recorded, it has 12 million plays on just Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, how crazy is that?
Yeah. So this was the very first concert the band had in 2.5 years. They had not played, and as far as I'm aware, they don't play again after this.
I think that's right. Yeah.
They go on an indefinite hiatus after this, and of course during that time we lose Lane. So this is the very last anything that has been put out, other than Music Bank, but Music Bank, which we are going to do next week as the second bonus, and we're going to let you guys know what tracks we're going to do from that are kind of new. at the end of this episode. However, all those songs were all songs that had been recorded or demoed up until that point. I don't know. I'm going to have to read to see if there's anything that had been done just for Music Bank. But as far as anything live, this is the last thing Lane ever did with them. I also kind of concur with Tyler and Nate a bit with the video. He just looks so sad and gone at points. And it's definitely a mood. But there's also times of levity where he's having fun. You can tell he's where he is having fun. But most of the times where you feel the mood is when he's in the middle of the song and it's like hitting for him, you know. And then after the song, he gets to like laugh and joke a little bit and have some levity.
I know. At one point, didn't that Cantrell said at one point, like his favorite moment of the entire recording is when you hear Lane say, "I want to hug all of you, but I'm not gonna."
No, I'm not gonna. Yeah. This was released on July 30th, 1996. I believe it was recorded in April of that year.
Yep. April. Yep.
And it debuted at number 3, and it is certified platinum. It has one single, which we'll talk about when we get there, I guess, as we always try to do. But guys, we've already talked about these songs at length before. What we're going to do now is just kind of compare them to from the way they were, because there's some stuff here from Jar of Flies and Sap, which were acoustic stuff to begin with. This is an acoustic setting. There's definitely different mood, but we're going to go down, talk about each one, talk about did we like it better, did we like it not as much. I could honestly say that even for the songs, a few here that maybe I'm not the hugest fan of, they're definitely better in this setting.
I totally agree.
And not only just because of the setting, but for some other things. But starting off, we're going to kick right into it, guys. Nutshell from Jar of Flies is what they started off with. And really, really good mood setter here to start off with Nutshell. I did like it better than the original version, which I don't think you're going to hear me say I like anything less. It's either going to be right in line with how I felt before, or it will be improved. And so I'm anxious to hear what you guys have to say, and I'm going to kick it right over to TY to kick it off about Nutshell.
Man, I tell you what, I was listening a little bit in some free time today, and I kept going back to the first couple tracks on this album, and just listening to it through headphones, not actually watching it. When you click play on Nutshell, and then the track starts, and the crowd just immediately is like eating it up, you know, and there's so much you can just. I mean, that was 1996. That was a long time ago, and even through all the time and fucking everything that has to take place for me to hear it through my headphones, I can feel the energy that's in that room. And like Nutshell was already a song, you know, you said it perfect. How could I say anything on this is worse, especially when like Nutshell comes out of the gate and you took an already fantastic song and made it better. So love it. Basically 19 million plays on Spotify.
Well deserved. Buckles, what do you guys say about this version in Nutshell?
Well, I want to say, first off, when I listened to this album going through, I really was kind of like comparing it. And I have a hard time listening to this as its own concert, as its own thing when ranking specifically, because I'm comparing it to what I've known prior. And I've kind of had the opposite experience where I know Tyler, didn't you say you had heard this album prior to hearing some of their other stuff? Is that right? Yeah. So I heard a lot of their studio stuff prior to hearing this. So my initial take on a lot of these songs, especially they're going to be ranked today, the studio cuts are what I knew first. I honestly love acoustic covers of just about anything. I've actually spent the last like 3 days watching just random acoustic covers of shit. But there are a few songs on this album that I actually liked less than the studio cuts. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. Specifically with Nutshell, I do have to echo Tyler. This is a great song, Elevated. This is the perfect start. They could not have picked a better song to start this off. Like, it gives you goosebumps as soon as the song starts. I do want to say the lack of filters or production, because Lane's vocals throughout their albums are so heavily, like, there's so much reverb to them. There's so much production to his voice that actually hearing it unedited, you can really get more of the soul in his voice coming through on this album than anything else.
Yeah.
And that goes throughout the entire album, good, bad, or indifferent. I like also another thing about you catch on this song and then you catch throughout the rest of it is that Cantrell gets to play around a lot more because there's not so much just chugging and overproduction. He's like throwing little blues riffs and stuff in between it. I love the solo through the end of the song. That's not in the original, but it's more of a, again, I feel like the tone of this song is a lot warmer, and it's already to me a warm song, but this was an elevation of an already great song. I can't put it better than that.
All right, Nate.
So I'm gonna kind of go with a narrative here that I started with kind of when we first started really talking about the album, and this is the artist who, whether or not they're aware of it, obviously they all sat there and made the conscious effort to make the set list what it was. They had to talk it over with MTV. Songs were cut, like you said. But right out the gate, Lane's voice says so truthfully the most painfully obvious thing about his journey. And it's the second and third line of the fucking first verse. We face this path of time, and yet I fight this battle all alone. Like, he is struggling with literal addiction, and he is nothing has stopped it. And he knows that he is on this very, very, very narrow path to demise. And when you hear, and I think rewatch it, there is a pain when he sings that line that's just like, man, it hurt me, and it is, sometimes you embellish what you think your favorite artists or people are doing on stage and what they're feeling and stuff. But I think there is something really truthful, and we'll talk about it, about the songs and the order of operation here. And to echo you guys, the best first track they could have picked to set the tone, to say, hey, look, this is, you already know us to do this style. We already do bring it down, and we can do the soft stuff. It isn't too flashy. It doesn't have like the no excuses drums and whatnot. This is, hey, get comfortable being intimate with us as a band, and
I love that.
and be in on the, because let me tell you guys, just as from a performer's perspective, Brandon can speak on this a little, Buckles probably as well, but there's a cool thing to be on stage with a bunch of people listening to you play your shit and whatever, and reacting and whatnot. There is something totally different about having a select few people sitting just observing you perform your art. And sometimes those moments are more impactful than anything I've ever done on stage. Just sitting in a room with a few people watching me jam with other, like that. So it's the same kind of vibe here, definitely, where they're just inviting you to sit in this room, or with your headphones on, you're alone, or with whoever you're listening to the album with, and take it in. Very, very, very. It's fucking beautiful. And I guess with that, I should probably start off the ranks. Now, I do have here.
Before you give a number, I want to kind of echo something that you'd mentioned really quickly. That we've talked about their previous albums and the thematics and everything that have gone into them. And this was a few years after, say, Dirt, Facelift, and the like. So think about all the stuff that we talked about when we were talking about Dirt specifically, and how so much of that confronted the addiction, confronted what he was feeling then, and how, like, he knew when writing that years ago what it could look like and how bad it can be. And now he's sitting here living through it and singing about the same things. It's a completely different, he's looking at it from the other end of it, which is really heartbreaking in its own way.
It's one of those situations where I want to go look, and I know Metallica has this. I know no other band does, but the whole set list thing, and see what they played the show or the shows before that. And if Nutshell wasn't on there at all, it's like, it kind of condenses their story into a nutshell here, that this is the journey we're taking. So for my original rank, I know I gave this one an 8, but for the hauntingness, for the eerie, creepy truth that is leaking through in this intro song, for the beautiful intimacy it gives, I'm giving it a 9.25. Killed it. Killed this track.
Buckles.
I said it's a gorgeous song, elevated. I gave it a 9 initially. This is a 10. This is the perfect song on this album for me.
Ty.
Nate, it's funny. You gave it the same score that I gave the original. I gotta go with Buckles on this. This is 10 out of 10 for me, bud. That's a 10 out of 10 for me, bud.
I gave
Get
the
it,
original.
pal.
I gave the
Sorry,
original
Brandon.
a 9, and I think it's elevated. But I'm a 9.5. I'm right in between y'all. So
I see, but I think that's fair. I think anywhere, and I think we all kind of said this when we ranked this song initially, just unanimously, pretty much everybody across all the fan bases and all the bullshit. It's like, this song's so good. It's got to be 9 minimum. Anything above that is sure more is appreciated, but
Like they'd have to pretty much walk out on stage and take a dump on stage for this to be less than a 9.
yeah, totally.
Even still.
I love the solo at the end.
Creative integrity. That log drop at the end was. You've heard of mic
My
drops.
tea on my face.
Oh God.
I'm pretty sure they have some sort of decency laws somewhere for which dude just popping a squat.
I mean, wasn't it not
G.G.
very-
Allen.
What was it not very long ago that is it Raging or Bass Against the Machine or something like Brass Against the Machine? Brass Against the Machine, where the lead singer, a female, just in the middle of the song invites someone up on stage, squats over
when
him
she
and just
pissed on his
pisses
face?
all over. Yep. Pissed
Yeah.
all over him. And that dude could have been happier too, it seemed like.
Yeah, he just took it. He loved it, man.
he could not
loved
have
it.
been happier.
Like, I'll find the video and I'll put it in the chat, dude. That guy
please
was literally eating it
please
up.
don't. I don't need to see
Yeah.
it again. Please don't.
Brass Against
Nah.
is
Yes.
the band's name.
The next track, Brother, from Sap, the opening song from Sap. Brother, what did I... Yeah, an interesting song to put at number 2. Maybe not what I would have picked, but just, again, a little bit of a better version of the song. Due to the atmosphere, due to even though Sap, if I remember correctly, Sap was a lot more acoustic than even Jar of Flies.
Flies.
Jar of Flies was acoustic, but then it also had elements of just like more production to it with some electric guitars in there. Sap was a little bit more of that, and I did not care for Sap overall that much. But this song was my highest one on that one, and I don't think it's bad here. I don't think it's a bad fit, but it's interesting that their song choices here. We've talked about them telling a story, maybe within their song choices, rather than just picking some of their absolute like biggest hits, because there's a couple of big hits that are omitted, from this set.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to start off with Nate this time. What do you think about the Unplugged Brother?
Oh, okay. So let's really talk about and break this down, because my first initial thought was like, oh God, no, please. Because their first attempt of that high harmony, they're finding it. And
It's
and
rough,
listen,
yeah.
they're on stage, they're really doing it this time. I get nerves. I get it.
It's raw.
But they definitely find it though. And then one thing you go back and you think about, you're like, wait a minute, hold on. This is an incomplete version of the song anyways, because Ann Wilson from Heart is not even, she's not obviously doing her part.
Yeah.
And she's got a beautiful high fucking voice that
Mhm.
adds to that overarching harmony that makes it a really 3-part dope fucking harmony.
It would have been
So-
really cool if she could have came out and
Showed
did,
up for that one.
showed up and just was featured in that part of the set, and then she, go back and sit down in the audience. I mean, how fucking cool would that have been?
Yeah.
Incredible. I would wonder if they maybe tried to make that happen and, schedules possibly didn't line up, but it's, to go back to, again, that theme of what are we doing here? What's coming? This big looming monster. You've got Lane and Jerry, and Jerry's obviously written a song about a different experience, and they're harmonizing so raw and naked. Literally, they get to a spot where there's nothing but their voices. And that's when they are the most locked the fuck in the whole song. Okay, those two, these blood brothers that aren't real brothers, and we all kind of know what that is like, and like they're telling each other goodbye without even knowing they're doing it. It's really dark and beautiful, really cool for sure. But this is one of those songs that, like, man, they hit it. The mode and the mood of this, again, invites people closer. We're getting as intimate as we personally can. Feel our souls touch on stage like this, like Flittery's. And that's what we got to experience watching and listening to this performance of Brother that, again, elevates an already good song to something in a new echelon, which is really crazy to say. Yeah.
All right, Buckles, what you got?
Going back to my original ranking for Brother off of SAP, I wasn't the hugest fan of it originally. I only gave it a 6.5. I like the acoustic version better because it doesn't feel as dirgy. It doesn't feel as harsh in a way. I think it really highlights Cantrell's singing a little bit more in this one, more than Nutshell does. Nate hit it on the head. The harmony is not there at the very beginning, but throughout the song, they do really get to like dial it in. That acapella section is fantastic. Is just absolutely freaking fantastic. But even like the droning sections, which is I had a problem with in the first go round, the droning sections even sound a little more inviting. So yeah, I like this one. It's still not my favorite song, but it's a marked improvement over the original studio cut.
Right on. How about you, TY?
I love every single part of everything that Nate said, and I love everything that Buckles said. I still stand by. I remember, because I'm one of the ones that ranked Brother the highest when we ranked it initially. Sorry, I didn't mean to try and interrupt you, Buckles, but I was just you made me think of something.
No, you didn't. You're good.
When Brother opens and you really close your eyes and you're feeling that energy, that the opening notes that they play on guitar is so clean, and you're so focused on it. And then when he first does the and then it's bow bow bow, and then it's just what a fucking tone setter. And again, love it more. Got to.
Would
It's
you
too
rank
good.
it? Would you rank it?
10 out of 10, my man.
How about you, Buckles?
I gave it an 8.75. Originally a 6.5.
Nate.
Talking on Brother, I was a 7.75 originally, but this one gets beep-boppily bopped up to a 9.25 again.
Listen here, Jack Black.
He brings
You
out
listen
that
here.
sousaphone or whatever.
Be a little.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was an improvement. What did I give the original? I gave it a 7.25. I gave this one an 8. Definitely an improvement. The next track, No Excuses, from Jar of Flies. I do believe that was a universal favorite when we ranked it last time. It got a perfect score, which there's been a couple of those, but 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So out of 5 perfect scores, here's one of them on the Unplugged. Can there, we've made the notion of, could there be a higher score than 10? Could we Spinal Tap this and have it go to 11?
I tried to break the multiverse in Metallica, and Brandon fucking refused. Is the short answer, guys. It's not happening.
Well, okay.
I'm just trying to figure out what the hell face you were just making.
Nate unfortunately pulled the shortest straw because I wanted to do it for Unforgiven 1. I love that song so much. I think it's beyond a 10. It is a piece of fucking artwork. And this performance, No Excuses already was a piece of artwork. This one also here too as well. The performance is even better. I love the vibrance of this. I love like the bongos. We're playing bongos. So different, and it has a. I love we have said it over and over again. The harmonies, and great on this track as well. We're gonna start it off this time with Buckles. What'd you think about Unplugged? No Excuses.
I'm gonna crash the train right off the bat. I actually rank this one slightly less than the studio cut. So, I mean, only the slightest bit, and only because something bugged me, and that is, it's a minor quibble. It's minor as hell. Bye, Nate.
Nate's dead. Nate's gone. We've
I
lost him permanently. Look what you
Nope.
did.
I make him walk off of every show. Somehow I make him walk off of every episode. No, I love No Excuse. It is one of my favorite Alice in Chains songs, and I originally gave it a 10. I love the harmony. I love the highlights of the drums. The harmonies here are the best that you're going to get on this recording. The only thing, and it bugs me as a drummer, and I'm kind of surprised Nate didn't slightly pick up on it. I'm waiting for him to sit back down.
That was an artistic walk away because it also allowed me to get another snack. Thank you.
Yep, thought so. I'm waiting for him to put the headset on here. Nate, the reason I backed off on it a little bit, the only reason I docked it anything, is because I'm judging against something that I consider to be greatness, for one. As a drummer, does it sound like it's sped up to you? The tempo is just slightly up, and it bugs the shit out of me. Like, it feels like it's just.
And do you know why I think it is?
I mean, there's any number of reasons it could be.
I have a thought, and obviously we don't know this, but is it possible they slightly slowed the album down because it was too fast when they played it live?
Could be.
Because
could be.
As a drummer, what is your natural inclination is to speed up always.
Right.
So this song, especially, you lose this and get off the train tracks, we got a real problem. So I think at this point in their careers, they could lock in and not worry so much about tempo, that they could play it a little bit quicker.
No, I'm not saying it's bad by any stretch. I'm just saying that the only reason I docked it anything at all is because it threw me. That little bit was enough. Sure. I've listened to the original enough that I love the original. It's what I'm used to. That speeding up just threw me just that little bit. That's the only reason I docked it anything. Otherwise, no, this is absolutely a 10. When you're comparing something to art, you have to be critical.
No, I totally agree. I mean, that was actually one of the things that I was going to bring up, the fact that highlights for me the tone of the drums, and I actually like that it's sped up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it to me it feels a little bit more natural.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you again. Did you hear this version before you heard the studio cut?
This well, yeah, I guess, yeah, I did.
So if this is what you were basing it off of, if this is your first experience to it, the other one's going to sound more slowed down than this one's sped up.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's the opposite for me.
Nate, you got anything
All
to
right,
say?
so yeah, I do. Buckles, I see where you're coming. I get it. I do understand where he's coming from. But this is that same thing, Brando, we fell into with Metallica, where you take greatness, perfection, and you have it on this pedestal. Hey, you can't fuck with this. It's unfuckwithable. But the soul of Alice in Chains, specifically Lane and Jerry sharing this whole moment on stage together, this is where they showed off a little bit. Like, look what we can do. We kept it together. We didn't fall apart as a band. It's a very complex tune. And as a live performance, it makes it better for me because it's not, hey, these guys were in the studio. Oh boy, played the drums 4,978 takes. Lane went in, came in and tried the vocals. It took him about 15 tries. Jerry obviously just smashed it. You know, like it's none of that. It's here we go. This is our musicianship on the line and one of our most complex songs. And we did it. So it is, again, a 10 for me because you can't obviously make it 11. We said the rules. So it stays. It maintains its perfection. It is without the loss of its shine.
Ty, what'd you give it, bud?
I gave it a 10 too, and I'll tell you why. I really like what you said there, Nate, because with the tempo speeding up a little bit, with how clean the drums sound, to me it almost felt like, imagine Lane and Jerry and the rest of the gang, like they met up on the pier and they set their instruments up and they're doing like a jam thing, you know. Throw some change in the hat as people walk by, and that's what this makes me feel. That's what this makes me think of, because it feels very natural. It feels very clean. It's
entirely possible that like every time they played it live or played it themselves, they played it to that tempo.
Yeah,
it's entirely possible.
Yeah. So 10 out of 10 for me too. Sorry.
I gave it a 10. What did you give it, Buckles, since you are the one in dissent?
9.75. Like I said, I docked
right.
it just the slightest bit. Again, I think a lot of my.
I'm not gonna be too mad at you.
The way I rank this stuff today isn't like I don't look at it as that performance in particular. In my mind, I'm comparing it to what came before. I'm comparing the two songs.
The next track is an interesting song. From
Time out real quick because there's one thing we didn't bring up.
Oh, okay. So after No Excuses and right before Sludge Factory, the band decides to do a little nod and salute to certain members in the audience, and they start jamming on Enter Sandman because Metallica is in the audience. They're in the front row to see their friends Alice in Chains play. And
there's also another nod in the video to this as well.
Well, the bassist, was it Mike Inez?
I believe so.
He wrote on his acoustic bass in Sharpie, friends don't let friends get friends haircuts, because this was the first public outing in 96 of all four members of Metallica with short hair.
Yep.
You know, Newsted had cut it before, and James had cut it into a mullet. Now, okay, so here's some cool annotations that I'm not sure if we talked about this direct in the Metallica rank. So a little bit of Metallica rank addendum here before we get into the next song. So James had said that he had decided to cut it because it had become too hard to maintain his hair. It had become broken, frazzled, been on the road for 3 years.
Caught fire a couple times.
He got caught on fire.
As the resident long hair of the group, I believe him.
So now, our good buddy Dick Blaine Tyner, who also does some Rank 'Em All stuff. He was on the Metallica episodes as part of the BT BAM, and he's also a part of the Breaking Benjamin set that's coming out soon. He told me something not that long ago with something from Jason Newsted as to why the other band members of Metallica had decided to cut their hair, because Newsted had cut his first. In fact, he completely shaved his head bald. Well, they were on tour and, going to different countries, crossing country lines, airports. It got to a point where Newsted was going through without any problem, just passing right on through, no question. And all the other members, James, Lars, and Kirk, kept getting detained due to their looks. And especially Lars, who very mostly had partied too much the night before and was either hungover or strung out on whatever drugs he had been taking the night before. So the next day, he looked pretty bad and was feeling pretty bad. And so they were wondering what's up with this guy, especially dealing with international airport security and police. So therefore,
hey, what's up with that guy?
Yeah. Hey.
I'm honestly
fuck is wrong with that guy?
I'm honestly surprised Lars didn't cut his hair because of the receding hairline.
Well, you know what? That was probably incoming, because now he wears hats when he plays live. So, be that as it may, cool little Metallica nod. There's actually another one that got cut from the cut from the performance where I just read it before we went on air, where there's the Inner Sandman. Before Angry Chair, which is coming up, Jerry Cantrell played the intro to Battery before going into the Hee Haw song. But that was cut from that. So the next song was from the previous album, the self-titled's, which go check out that episode if you haven't, if this is your first time. That got a very interesting rank from all of us. It's a definite introspective, and this song was Sludge Factory, and it got a pretty mixed reaction from us. A couple of us ranked it pretty decently, some of us did not. And I will go first in saying that this performance of Sludge Factory is miles better than what was on the previous album for a multitude of reasons. Number one, the production. The production here sounds way more like Alice in Chains. Maybe that's what they wanted. Maybe they wanted the last album to sound a little bit different than what they had done before. They wanted to step out. I will defend that to death. Any band or artist that wants to do that, do it. That doesn't mean that I'm going to like it. And obviously, I really kind of didn't, based on my rank from the last one. Another reason, Lane's voice is not doubled. That is something that bugged me so much on the self-titled album.
Yes.
We were so used to hearing the harmonies between Lane and Jerry. That is the Alice sound, even to the point of when we're going to get to the albums later, post Lane, some of the things that stay are the harmonies. Even though Lane's not there to harmonize anymore, unfortunately, they still do it because that's a part of the sound that has still stayed. And so the harmonies here, instead of the double voice, sound better. The other thing about this song that is way better, it's so much shorter. This version is like 4 minutes and the original 7 minutes and something. It drags on in the original. So therefore, this was a very key example of, unfortunately, and now this is, I'm being critical of the self-titled, what could have been. I feel like it could have been better, and obviously you're not going to hear me you are going to hear me maybe repeat that later on with some other songs that maybe from that album, with some songs coming up later as well. Metallica did it with a song from Saint Anger. They did All Within My Hands, stripped it down, made it acoustic, changed the song up, and it's way better.
Much better, yeah.
So you can, sometimes it happens. I'm going to salute them for taking that artistic risk. Do your thing. But they did this song justice here. I'm going to flip it on over, and I'm going to throw it over to TY first. What'd you think about this version of Sludge Factory?
Hey, I ranked it 7.75 first go round. And I remember, just like last time, same thing here. Everything you said, it's like, yep, the doubling of the voice. Oh my goodness. Like, that bothered me so bad. So the opening of this song with the acoustic bass and then just Lane coming in real soft and subtle at the beginning makes the hair stand up on my arms. So it's like, okay, that's enough for me. When you've got like a physical response, hey, that's good shit.
Absolutely.
It's my caveman way of saying I liked it.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, good.
That's my caveman senses. We'll go to Buckles next. What'd you think, man?
I liked it better than the studio cut, which I did not care for at all. I gave it a 5 on our last episode. The single track vocals are, again, miles better. The length is miles better. I do notice that Lane's getting a little more range in his vocals throughout this song. Like, he gets to flex a little more than he did on the previous 3 rather. He gets to do a little more of the melismatic, runs through notes and everything that he does very well. He does start kind of getting a little strainier in the chorus where it gets higher end, which that may have been why they had double tracked it to begin with. But overall, the song's less sludge. It's less. I know the song's Sludge Factory, but when the whole album, my issue with the self-titled was that so much of it was just drone, sludgy, mid-tempo. And here, because it's not part of that album where everything is sounding the same, it stands out a little bit more, and it does make the song better. I definitely agree that if this would have been on the self-titled album rather than the studio cut that we got, it would have gotten a higher rank. So definitely it's an improvement.
Nate.
Man, Sludge Factory is stripped down and raw in this version. Your weapon is not guilt this time because they don't even bring that into the equation, which is nice. It does shorten the song quite a bit. I love specifically the drums in this track are just so crisp and locked in, and you just catch yourself just in it, not necessarily for just the drums, but just you can find yourself being locked into that rhythm because it's so perfect. The singing is really nice. This is an opportunity for the most part where Jerry doesn't have to sing, so he's stepped back from the mic, allows his voice to kind of clear up here for a second. You know, obviously Lane has a heavy load, but that's kind of his sole duty of the band is to bring the vocals. So this is just where Jerry, who is already so focused on doing a guitar as well as vocals, to give himself a little bit of a break. But again, talking about the descent and possible unintentional telegraphing of the demise of Lane Staley is like within this song, you know, discolored skin giving you away is talking about this like person who is just flush from drugs and is strung out, and you easily know, you're like, that dude's fucked up. I've seen that guy at my job 1,000 times fucked up, like not cool, man. But again, within the verbiage of the lyrics that they created for this song, it's just hauntingly obvious that something is coming, again, retrospectively speaking.
All right, what'd you give it, Nate?
Obviously, on the original, I gave it an 8.25. This time, bumped it up decently. Not as big as previous bump ups on this album. I gave it a 9 solid.
All right. Buckles.
I went from a 5 up to a 7. Still not my favorite song, but that's really market improvement.
TY.
I went from a 7.75 to an 8.75.
Full point up. I gave it a 6, and I bumped it up to an 8. I definitely enjoyed it way more here than I did it on the self-titled. The next track, if it were possible to rank its song an 11, and we did that, if we would have broken that rule on No Excuses, I would now be pitching.
Upset.
I would now be pitching to raise it to a 16.
Word.
Because Down in a Hole Unplugged is probably my favorite Alice in Chains anything. I love it. It is amazing. The soul, the harmonies, and the dual vocals in the bridge. When I listen to this with headphones, I tear up. It gives me the caveman goosebumps. And this is, I said it when we ranked it Down in the Hole before, that like it's arguably my favorite song, and I'm gonna like jerk this song off even more on Unplugged, and I am doing that right now, and I'm just working my way down the shaft as we speak. Okay, this damn song, I absolutely love it. There's gonna be some similar ranks, maybe for some awesome, great songs that have already been ranked high before. This is one of the 5 perfect scores from before. But even those songs that are to come on this album, I don't think quite match this for me. I absolutely love this performance, and I'm going to shift it on over to Nate and let him go.
The emotional.
I'm passing the dick to Nate.
Yeah, sure.
we're all gonna take our turn. I'll guarantee you that.
The dick baton has been handed over, huh? This is some really elongated foreplay. Taking some comic tones before we get really serious here, because man, again, Lane, bro, just to think that not a year, was it 2 years, a year, 2 years later, something like that?
It'd be 6.
Or is it?
I think Lane died in 02, which if you guys have seen the Metallica Some Kind of Monster, I don't know if they really talk about it, but I want to say
Yeah,
Lane.
that's right.
If Lane died while James was going through his rehab,
I think that's right.
and that hit James so hard. And I mean, I don't really think it gets talked about that much on there, but it was something that hit him really hard during that, because here he is, approached with James. Here's, James is dealing with his own demons, and he was threatened by basically his family being taken away from him. Like, we're gonna leave, and you're not gonna have us anymore. And that was one of his greatest fears, is losing, because he built his family with his wife and his kids, and he's not gonna have that anymore. So I gotta, okay, I am messed up. I gotta take care of myself. And here's one of his friends in the music business, somebody that he's traveled the road with, and now he's gone because of his own demons. And it's something that retrospectively, James, that could be me.
Right.
That I could lose my family, but my family could lose me.
Well, and then there's an additional piece to that of survivor's guilt, right?
Yeah.
Where James probably had some thoughts of man, if I would have just tried to reach out to Lane sooner, tried to have him maybe guest spot on a Metallica album, to give him some money to get his shit together, whatever it was going to be. Obviously there was no solution to what was happening, but just, again, the hauntiness of this, there specifically, where actually Jerry takes the lead in the "Bury Me Softly"
Oh my
midway
gosh.
through the song.
Okay,
my
so
fuck.
Yes, that's what I was telling you about. That's the part that really gets me, is because they do such great harmony throughout this album, and of course throughout previous albums. But when you "Bury Me Softly in This Womb," and then you just hear the line, they do this call and response thing. Oh, I want to be inside of you. Oh, man.
There's also a super deep harmony in there that's sick as fuck right before they come back to the final chorus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could gush on this. I'm going to toss the Dickaton over to Buckles.
Well, I'm going to get chased out of here. I ranked it slightly less. Again, comparatively, because of comparing song to song, and because the original is one of my favorite tracks. So again, when you're comparing something to art, you have to be critical. And I am critical of it because of that. I say that with all the love in the world. I do love this song. I love this recording.
Good day.
I love this
Get out
recording.
of here.
Yeah. Go.
But I'm sorry. I'll be that guy. I'll take the bullet today.
Think of the children.
I'm the only one here that doesn't have any, goddammit.
Think of them.
No, I refuse.
Why are you trying to jerk this dick off with no lube, bro? That's bullshit. You're
Yeah.
going to give it a rash.
I'm glad we
Damn.
passed it to you,
Okay, hold on.
and didn't result in this.
Try to, yeah, that would have been
in this
a
nice
sad,
down in a hole
sad
cock,
ending.
having a sad ending and complete and utter blue balls.
Sorry,
Yeah.
man. I was like, when Nate says he's throwing it to me, I'm going, give it to Tyler, give it to Tyler. Give it to Tyler.
No, give it to you. We should have gave it to you first.
Yeah.
I at least
Sorry, man.
damn it.
So just to get through here, again, I love this performance. It is fantastic. I can take nothing away from anything that you guys are saying at all, whatsoever. To me, and again, it comes because I listened to the studio version first, and that's what I'm comparing it to. The studio version is my favorite Alice in Chains recording, period. And to me, the acoustic, it just loses some of the depth to it. I don't know what it is, but it's I can listen to the original and feel like I'm in a grave that is being rained on while someone's throwing dirt in my face.
Is it?
Again, I used the phrase warm earlier. The tone, it doesn't come off as, I hate to say it, it's not as depressing.
Well, is it because the drums and the bass aren't featured as heavily
It could
through
be
the first half of the song?
It could very well be. And I could very well be biased because of how much I've listened to the studio versus this. That my natural inclination when I think of this song is not to think of this version, it's to think of the studio one. And as much as I do enjoy this, and I don't mean to rain on any of this. I love this song. I love this recording of it. It's just, it comes off to me as a different version of it, and I prefer the original. There's a menace there. This is going to be true for a couple songs coming up here as well. There is a menace. There is a underlying darkness to these studio recordings, that a little more depth to it that for some reason feels lost to me here. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but to me, it makes it feel lesser to me. Again, to take nothing away from Brando, I absolutely appreciate that this is one of the best, your favorite songs. I can understand why.
I feel like I feel like it's more raw here, and that to me is why it is more depressing to me. Because
that could very well be,
because it is so like
it just feels like to me it's lacking something, and I cannot put my finger on it.
Well,
there's something missing from the sound of it.
Is it lacking production? Yes, but I almost feel like that's a good thing, because this performance is so raw. I hear the pain in the voice, in both. Like like this is probably, I mean, and we got some great songs coming up that are great too.
Right.
But like this might be like the best vocal performance from both of them.
Even in my notes here that I've got, the especially the chorus harmony is spot on, perfect. Like, cannot be better. Like, I cannot. I'm almost second guessing what I'm writing here, but like, just gut reaction to it. If you put a gun to my head and tell me to listen to one of the two of them, I'm listening to the studio cut. And that's the last thing I can say. It's the only thing I can say.
TY, can you fix this flaccidness?
Yeah, let me hold on. I'll spit on it.
We just all walked away
up
for a goddamn sandwich in the middle of it for some reason.
But obviously,
a mid-coitus snack.
Yeah, sometimes you need that mid-coitus refresher. Just I mean, sometimes it gets hot and sweaty, and you need some. Look,
Cherry
hey,
Pepsi,
baby, I'll be right
better.
back. Let me get a drink of tea.
Like you took a real drink.
I took a real drink of my tea here. So, God, I mean, this is a legitimate, and I'm referring to the studio version here. And this is a legitimate, timeless classic, right? Like, this is a song that when somebody opens up a time capsule, it's going to be like, hey, through this period of time, we had this stuff called grunge. And if you really want to check out some grunge, like here, and it's going to be down in a hole. And I think personally, Buckles, that thing that you're saying that is just missing, it is the visual aspect of this performance specifically, because I was sorry, my screen got real bright here, but I was kind of going through some of the video of the performance. And when they get to this point in the set list, you know, Lane's taking his sunglasses off at this point, and you know, he's just kind of sitting, you know, on the stool, and he's got his hands in his lap, and he's just kind of there. But then once he gets going in this song, you can feel him, you can see him, his body relaxes a little bit, and he just lets it out. And when he does, there's a portion, maybe a minute and a half in, when he starts, you know, going through the first chorus, and he's sitting and his eyes are barely open, and it looks like he's about ready to fall off of the chair. Mm-hmm. So just like watching, and there's a certain couple camera angles that they go throughout the performance, especially in this song, where Lane is at the forefront, but they're off to the side enough that you can see Jerry, you know, and he's jamming, he's having a good time. But when Lane gets to those points in the song, you can actually see Jerry look at him. And, you know, obviously I don't think that it's like, oh shit, is he okay? But it's just, you've got, in my opinion, one of the greatest musicians of all time, almost like pausing during the performance to recognize what's going on to the right of him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, to me, this is absolute magic. And I think ultimately with this and the original, you have to appreciate both for what they are. But to me, it's 10 out of 10 all over again.
Also a 10 from Nate. I can't not. I mean, listen, it was already perfect. It stays perfect. It maintains its perfectness. Yeah.
Ty, did I hear that correct? And you kept it a 10.
I did keep it a 10.
I
Sorry.
kept it a 10 as well. Buckles, this is where we decide
9.75.
how
I'm sorry, man.
how far to throw you off the ship. Are we just gonna like let you dip your toe in and maybe just push you in and we'll get you back out, or are we just gonna leave you on the island? Like,
Yeah. Are you about to Jack Sparrow yourself?
Well said.
I mean, how many songs are left on the album?
we got quite a
Many.
few.
Let's not don't blow your load just yet.
Wow. Wow. A load joke after we said friends don't let friends get friends haircuts. Wow.
And the fact that we were
Oh,
jerking off
okay,
a
hold on. Yeah,
metaphorical
Nate-
penis. And
Yeah, Nate, that wasn't meant as a Metallica reference. That was meant as the complete another dick joke that this has become. No, I'm going to preface the rest of this review by saying that as good as this album is, I still think that I was more generous to Dirt than everybody else on the panel, and that still stands. When I listen to Alice in Chains, it's not this album. I listen to Dirt first and foremost, and that will show through. Not to take anything away from this, because I do that. This is to me one of the best acoustic albums of all time.
Hell yeah.
But again, I'm going to be, if you can't have perfection without criticism. You cannot have perfection without criticism. And if you think something's already perfect, then you look at the second one, it has to measure up to the criteria. And if I rank something a 10 ahead of time, then it has to measure up to be a 10 again. And if I find something that's not that takes it off to me, then I have to do that. That's not saying that some of this stuff isn't going to be better either, but just prefacing.
What'd you rank it?
9.75.
Hell, see,
Okay.
you got all
I
you
kept
got all
saying
doom
that,
and
like,
gloom.
I kept saying, I love the track, I love the song, I love the recording. It's just not my favorite.
See, my sarcastic ass, if I would have been in Buckles' predicament of lowering a score, would have been like, all right, I'm giving it a 9.99. Like close enough.
I will say that I do have a song on this album that I raised to a 10.
okay,
So,
well,
that in mind.
if he would have said all that and then said 9.99, I would have left the screen and all you would have seen is my angry chair, which
It
is
would
the
have been,
song that is next. It would have been spinning just
I would
in
have said that
complete anger.
Brando has gone back to his home planet, was never heard from again.
Never.
They poochied him.
Nope.
God, can I go back to my home planet and never be heard from again?
That sounds like something that I would also like to do. Angry Chair was cut from the MTV broadcast, but now, I mean, obviously included, which is one of 3 songs cut from the broadcast. We'll talk about those when we get there as well. Angry Chair. What did I rank Angry Chair? The angriest of chairs. Okay, a pretty good modest rank there. Angry Chair also from Dirt. I want to say, I think I remember saying it that like I like Angry Chair, but like there were so many good songs already that this one kind of gets lost in the pack a little bit with all those other with just the sheer greatness of some of the great songs that are on Dirt. Not that it's a bad song by any means, but a pretty good performance here from Angry Chair for me. I definitely did like it, but also this is the one of the first ones here that I don't feel like it moved any for me. I think it stayed right where I ranked it before, and that's not a bad thing because I didn't give it a bad rank last time. Who wants to go first for Angry Chair? I don't know who's next. Okay, Nate.
Let me just go ahead.
Buckles.
Let me go ahead and shoot the messenger ahead of time. This is another 0.7 or 0.25 drop for me. I give it a 9. I give it went from a 9 to an 8.75 for me. And I can actually pinpoint a couple things on here. This song is not. It's so much more menacing in the studio cut. It loses just a little bit of that I'm like, and menace is right,
yeah.
kind of the right word for it.
Mhm.
Specifically, that twang, that don't that it doesn't come across as well with the acoustic. It doesn't have that same umph to it. And there'll be a couple other songs like that. It just loses a little bit of punch and loses a little bit of the menace that made the original so much better. But again, it's still a fantastic song. The solo in particular on this is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wanted to go ahead and get mine out of the way so I'm not blowing everybody else again.
All right, Ty. Well, I guess we'll just let you go next.
Yeah, so here we are again. I ranked this one a 9.5 initially for the original version. In my notes, going through my notes here, I really, really, really liked the bass acoustic throughout this. It's so clean, and I appreciate. I totally agree with what you were saying, Buckles, about it not being as menacing. To me, it's obviously not as like it's not loud. It's not going through an entire vocal and acoustic range at all times. But that's why I appreciate this one because it's different. Let me see what else. Yeah, that's I just really, really, really liked the bass notes throughout, and then yeah, that's all I got. Sorry. Just trying to read.
So a couple things, actually. If we're talking about songs that have tempo adjustments, I feel Angry Chair slightly faster in this version.
And yeah,
a pinch. I feel like Buckles, I vibe exactly what you're saying about the menacingness not being as there in this cut. And it's really interesting because it has this drop point where you're like, it's the same song, but I'm not connecting to it the same. And I can recognize that. And I'm like, not mad at it, but what is happening? And then they do weird things like hit this fucking perfect harmony that is so powerful. You're just like, it's okay maybe if it's sped up a little bit, because that harmony was so fucking good. They didn't even do that on the album as good. You know what I'm saying? It sounds good, but it's like to hear them do it raw like that with no safety net of like auto-tune and shit back then. Like, it's fucking impressive. Okay. So like my brain keeps shifting back and forth. And I think I ultimately end up, this is going to be the smallest adjustment in the entirety for me, because it does move up a little bit because I love the rawness of this. And I like that it just builds more to them really saying, hey, if we're going to say goodbye to Lane without even knowing it, like we're going to play some of our best shit. And I gave Angry Chair a slight bump of 9.50 instead of a 9.25 like last time. So a 0.25 increase.
TY, what did you give it?
I gave it a 10.
A 10 for Angry Chair?
I remember what I was going to say towards the end there. Thank you, Nate, for jogging my memory. The last minute and a half of that song, the vocal harmonies are on point. The guitar's sounding good. You can definitely tell in that last little bit that the tempo is sped up, and it's just so clean that like the last minute and a half of that song is probably my favorite part of the song.
Once they start doing like the lost my mind, I can't find it anywhere harmonies, bro. There's nothing better in the song.
Yeah, dude, so good. I gave it 10 out of 10. Sorry if I didn't say that.
Buckles, you gave it an 8.75.
That's correct.
I left it right at my original score as an 8. I didn't dislike it, but I really couldn't find anything about it that I felt like was improved. The next song is one of the biggest songs in Alice in Chains discography. It's one of their biggest singles, one of their biggest hits, and I was kind of surprised to see a couple of their hits gone, like missing from this set list. But if they would have omitted this, I think people would have rioted. Simply due to its tone, due to its nature, that it's made to be performed in this setting. And of course, we're talking about Rooster. Rooster is one of the 5 perfect scores, which as of yet none of those perfect scores from before have remained perfect scores. Buckles. So we'll see. We will see if that holds true with Rooster. I thought this is a really good performance of Rooster. This is maybe the one song that I can understand why it might be lowered a bit, because that original recording of Rooster has such a impact and vibe that this is definitely going to have a different feel to it. But that's kind of the point, is to kind of have a different version of it here. I kept my ranking the same. I kept it a 10. But this time we will start with Nate. What did you think about the Unplugged Rooster?
It's my favorite. It's literally what happened.
Well, I'm just
the phrase "the unplugged, rooster."
I'm thinking that is a band name for Nick Maxon for his list of band names.
I love it, the Unplugged Rooster.
But also like this is just like all the dick jokes we've been making, and like I got teed up to make one, and I maybe I made one with the Unplugged Rooster.
I'm gonna say it sounds like a sex toy.
Okay.
The Unplugged Rooster.
Okay. Well, caw away, Nate.
Thank you. Arguably my favorite version of any Alice in Chains song all time.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this is that whole like, hey, you set the benchmark, but a mixture of emotion in Lane's voice with the powerfulness of them being able to still listen. It's not easy to strain your voice like he's straining there in the song. And this deep in the set list is like perfect. He's good and like loosened up and can just project brilliantly. But like he's doing little voice flourishes that aren't necessarily in the recording. But also one thing that doesn't get talked about is like the bass player fucking murders on this track, yo. Mm-hmm. He takes lines that are actually the guitar line that would not have been there. And I know this. He improv that shit because when he plays it, look at them all look at him like, hey, whoa, that was cool. And he's just like, yeah, I just did that. That was fucking awesome. You didn't know that was coming, did you? And it's like, it just makes it for me. There's just so much impactfulness. I think the drums are spot on for what they're doing. I like the acoustic solo, even though it's not as piercing maybe and as pure as the recorded version. Just them still nailing that solo is like, fuck yeah, bring your shit. Like, I'm gonna sit and gush all day if I don't stop, so I'll just hand it down one square to TY and bestow upon him the goldness.
And I tell you what, it's funny. Just as we were kind of getting prepped here, I had the Unplugged video pulled up of that, and I was listening to it, and it was right in the moment, and you can see the camera pan, and Cantrell looks back, and he's like, "Yeah, like nice, dude." Yep. It's so genuine. And it's so perfect that when you hear it for the first time and you recognize it, and then you see it, and then that just the fact that everybody else is into it, love it. Super good vibes from that. But there's let me see here, right where I'm at. If you go like a minute and 40 seconds into the song, basically as Lane and the rest of the guys are opening it up, you know, he's doing, his hands are in his lap again. He's looking straight down at the ground. You know, his eyes are basically closed. And then as he goes to get ready and let it out, you see him look straight up at the camera. And then that's like the first time that he actually looks out at the crowd, and then he just fucking lets it out. He just lets it go. And it's, I mean, same thing. Caveman emotions tell me the chills down my back is good. So, you know, ain't no changing from this perspective.
Buckles?
I'm kind of two minds on this. Honestly, this was one I really struggled with because I really like the bluesier tone that the acoustic gives it.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost feels a little more appropriate in spots. Like, this seems like if this had been written as a blues song, it wouldn't have been that out of place. But at the same time, the heavier moments on this, like they come to Snuff the Rooster, you hear that huge guitar hit, that's lacking. Like, it loses a lot of punch and a lot of momentum that the studio one has because it's so much heavier. So I honestly can't decide which of the two versions I liked more. I did knock it down a little bit because of that lack of punch, because that's probably my favorite parts of the song, is that where it really comes all like the whole heaviness comes crashing in during that the right before the where he ain't gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
That real, I mean, heavy guitar hit. The fact that that's missing is one of my favorite parts of the song, so I'm kind of a little of two minds about that. It is still a really cool performance. The one thing I loved about Cantrell in this is that he throws a lot more riffing in this than he does in the original version.
Mm-hmm.
Like during the verses, he's just noodling and shit on it, and that's what gives it that more bluesy tone. And you can tell he's enjoying it for a song he wrote. He's enjoying playing this version a little bit more, maybe. So I did dock it a little bit, but not a whole hell of a lot. It's still an excellent song.
God, it's so clean.
It is, and partially that's some of my issues with this is that I don't think of Alice in Chains ever being clean.
Yeah, that's true.
And like again, that's my love of dirt coming through and how just crunchy and dirty that is. That this clean tone is kind of it's a departure for me.
So, what did you rank it, Buckles?
I still gave it a 9. Like, I mean, it's still a fantastic song, and I do really like that bluesier quality to it, but it's missing a little something to me.
TY, did you keep that at 10?
I absolutely did, my man.
Nate gave it a 10.
Hey,
I also
same.
I also kept that at 10. The next track, Got Me Wrong, from Sap. Got Me Wrong. This was another interesting little choice to put on here. And what did I rank? It Got Me Wrong. Really weird ranking for me, and I'd have to go back. See, this is where it is a bit of a downer. We do release these as the season is completed, I guess, as we're done with the episodes, but that's not always how it's recorded. So sometimes I forget what I have said in the past, and my ranking for this one was 7.4. So why did I give it that? That is that's out of character from me. I'm not pulling Nate's. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was like, you know what? I gave it a 7.5, but just to screw with Nate, I'll make it a 4.
I think you did do that, actually.
I think that sounds right, actually.
Yeah,
Okay.
I honestly do think that's what you did.
Okay. Well, this one
Mystery solved.
Mystery solved. It did get a little bit of a boost for me, but I don't really have much to say about it. So, does anybody have anything notable to say about Got Me Wrong? TY, we'll start with you.
I really, pardon me. So, looking back at my rankings, I ranked it an 8.5 the first go round. I lost my notes for when we did SAP, so I don't really know off the top of my head. I don't know necessarily why I ranked it so harshly, because I really, really, really like this version. It feels very, very bluesy, very like, hey, let's sit down and we're just gonna jam for a little bit. I love it when almost a minute again when they go into the first chorus and Lane and Jerry do that first harmony together, and then at the end of it, just how Lane carries Wrong out. I don't know. There's just something about it that I really, really dig.
Right on. We'll go with Buckles next, and then Nate.
So this is a unique twist for me in that this version of the song, this version of Got Me Wrong, is actually the first one I heard. I heard this before I heard Sap. So my initial exposure to the song was through this recording. I love this. This is honestly, I really enjoy this. And going back and listening to Sap again, I enjoyed the studio more than I thought I would, having liked this one a lot more. This, I think, is really perfectly suited for the acoustic more than any of the other. Like, you can talk about No Excuses, you can talk about Nutshell. We'll get to Heaven Beside You, that were written as acoustic. And this one wasn't. This one was, well, to my knowledge, was the studio track that got taken to an acoustic, like Rooster, like Angry Cherub before it. This is the best transfer over to me. Like, this is, to me, if you told me this was written as acoustic originally, I'd buy that. and it keeps a lot of the menace that the original version has. I noticed that the studio version is a little more bass forward, while this is a little more guitar forward. I really love the bass in the studio. I really like the guitar in this a lot more. To me, this is the first one I really ranked upwards. Like, I know I gave Sludge Factory a better score. This is the first one that I went from the original studio track being, I kind of like this. It's a pretty cool song, to I really like this a lot. So this is actually this is probably one of my favorite tracks on the album.
Yeah, me too.
All right, cool. Nate.
Man, Lane opens his fucking throat up huge in this song. He is
Tyler, get
reaching
your mind out
for
of the gutter.
the highest harmonies with that scream voice that he is nailing. And it's beautiful because there's certain spots that, again, they do this baton trade-off where it'll sound like Jerry has taken the high harmony, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, hold on, no, that was Lane, because here's this deep harmony that Jerry does that Lane can't quite hit the same. And you're like, whoa, they are so versatile with their voices in those moments. The trade-off of the vocals, the guitar riffing. I might have said this in the first when we did Sap originally, it was just like, hey, Three Doors Down, why did you knock off this song so much? Because it's definitely like Loser. They stole this riff to make Loser. It's very similar. And I just think that they smash it on this song. It's a good showing again of their, like, hey, this is a song we're comfortable with. We've been playing it probably more than any of the other songs in our entire set list, or, at least we try to. And this is us able to really fully flesh that idea out. Because you got to think, sometimes when you're at a festival show or whatever, something like this is not going to get the same kind of reaction as some of their other hits. So they probably wanted this to be like, hey, we can really shine this up and show people what this song does. And then people are like, hey, that's really, really fucking great there, that what you've just done. More, please.
You got to remember that this came off a set. This came off an EP.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This wasn't a full release either.
Yeah. Which in and of itself is amazing.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But I bumped it. It's a 9.75 for me.
Wow.
Near perfect.
And TY, what'd you give it?
9.75.
I love that you paused and still got caught.
9.75.
Gotcha.
Can I get 9.75?
Or TY.
10 4.
I went from an 8.5 on the studio to a full 10. I love this. This is my favorite recording on the album.
It did get a bump from me. As I said, I gave it a 7.4 when y'all gave it 8.5s, and I gave it.
I brought it up to 7.42.
I gotta think this Nate. You always give the weird number, so I gotta think that's a response to you.
I'll have to go back and listen.
It must be something going on here. Maybe I felt like it was not just a full point under what you guys thought. Maybe I thought it was just like a smidget under, a skosh. But
Skosh.
I did bring it up to a full 8.
Hell yeah.
I did enjoy it. The next track, one of the singles from the last album, one of the more like attractive songs from the last album, Heaven Beside You. But even as I said, and I do remember saying this, like, man, I want to like this song more than what I do, and I don't know if it's like just the lyrics. It's being just a little bit uncreative for me, and just maybe it's like, even though I was critical of the tone of the record, this is the one song in the record that it like kind of like is weirdly like, even though it's nicer to the ears, it's like it doesn't belong in that group. I liked it a lot more here, a little bit more upbeat. Definitely like more of the No Excuses upbeat. I mean, maybe a little bit faster, and I liked it for it. I definitely ranked it a little bit higher, and I'm gonna pass it on over to Nate first and let him go first, and I'm gonna take just a few mementos, and I'll be back momentarily before we give the ranks.
Okay, so Heaven Beside You on this album again kind of signifies that move to taking something that's nearly perfect and just finding a way to make it a little bit better, because this song honestly on the recording has a lot of opportunity to where you think translating it live is gonna what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to fall apart, as it were. There's a lot of harmony changes and a lot of baton passing off of the vocals. Cantrell leads it in some spots, Lane leads it in some spots. And then you got the major breakdown where they still nail that heaviness with it still being acoustic. So it's like, you can't even like, how did they still find a way to capture that anger and aggression without there being that just that chunk, you know? So for me, this song really was very just, again, it's a banger, man. They just don't do it bad. They do not do it bad. I also don't laugh at me. Did either of y'all ever play like the Cheeto game on, like, I think it was like Super Nintendo or whatever? Like he was on a hot rod.
I didn't have a Super Nintendo, so that one's kind of lost on me.
Okay. Sorry, Buckles. Sorry.
Tyler's nodding, so I think
I know. Sorry to exclude you, Buckles. TY and I are about to have a little chat.
That's fine.
But the but the fucking okay. So in Heaven Beside You, in the very beginning, there's a and I swear to God, that was like from the
It's
fucking
playing in the background.
It's in the Cheetos game, bro, for sure. They took it from it, and I've always been like, "Where's that from?" And it finally clicked. I was like, "Oh, that's where it comes from." Brilliant. But yeah, that's my vibes. I'll pass it over to who wants it next.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Oh, Buckles will take it.
Oh, Buckles was quick on the draw.
Just because actually you just brought me to a point that I really liked, and that I mentioned yes, I love Cheetos. Yes. When I made my notes for Angry Chair, I mentioned that twang wasn't quite as menacing. It didn't seem right. They do a similar twang in Heaven Beside You, and it hits perfectly. But again, I think, Nate, the reason that they're able to translate this one over really well, I feel like this was written as an acoustic originally. They may have done extra in the studio with it, but this feels like this was written as an acoustic song. They may have added stuff to it afterwards, but at its heart, it's still acoustic.
Yeah, it did feel very natural.
This, you can tell it's acoustic based. Like, it does feel slightly sped up a little bit, but not noticeably so. Like I noticed it, and then like, okay, maybe I'm thinking a little about it too much, so I just kind of wrote it off. I do love Jerry getting the vocal spotlight a little bit more in this, because I mean, he's a good singer in his own right. He just kind of gets overshadowed a lot of times because Lane is so good. This one to me, and I can hear that I love that little bit, that little, not even a riff, it's just like a little noodling thrown in. But this one to me maintains everything that the studio album was, and honestly, this was the only song I really enjoyed off of the self-titled album, so it keeps a lot of that intact.
All right, TY, my man, what were your thoughts on this version of Heaven Beside You?
You know, I'm the echo chamber here. I agree with pretty much everything you guys have said so far. I ranked the original pretty high. It was a 9 the first go around. Buckles just said something that's the biggest thing for me is I love that Cantrell got the vocal spotlight here, because from the beginning of the song to the end of the song, you know, obviously, like Nate said, there's parts in the song where they kind of trade off back and forth, but for the majority of the time, Jerry's leading the show, and I feel like, and it's part of, I guess, what we'll get into as we get into Alice in Chains, circa now, is I had a problem for a long time when it was just Jerry. Because to me, especially when I first got into Alice in Chains, you know, Lane's what drew me in, and then I fell in love with the harmonies afterwards. Well, once you lose Lane, and obviously we talked about it earlier that the harmonies come back, but it's like, man, I had such a hard time, and it's not fair, because here is a perfect example of why it's so great, because I mean, you hit the nail on the head. He's he's not just a phenomenal musician. The guy can sing. So, you know, thankfully I don't have to be so uber critical now, and like, I can rank it very highly.
Anybody that listens to Alice in Chains, I'd highly recommend that you go check out Cantrell's solo stuff. Like, Degradation Trip is a fantastic album.
Yeah, big fan.
You really finally get the sense that Lane's not the only one going through horrific depression through the entire thing, because again, Degradation Trip is heavy. It's dark as shit. But you really get a sense that like everybody thinks of Staley when they think of Alice in Chains, and rightfully so.
Right.
Because I mean, I hate to make the comparison, but it's similar to listening to Nirvana and everybody thinks of Kurt Cobain because that's the first name you associate it with.
Right.
But Jerry is like, I noticed it more coming back to doing these rankings, how many of these that Jerry wrote. And that so many of the songs that I really enjoyed were the ones that he wrote as well.
Right. For sure.
So it's nice to see him finally get his roses as well, honestly.
Yeah, totally agree.
All right, guys. Thank you for covering. Are we ready for the ranks?
We literally perfectly timed it.
All right.
Perfectly timed it,
Awesome.
Brando.
Had to go and do the dual podcast host and had to do the hot tag to help out with some bedtime. That way, one parent isn't having to wrangle a family circus toddler. And then,
as well as put another one to bed.
Well, we'll put both of them to bed, one after another, and then the other one, who isn't a family circus toddler, but kind of like I don't know, if things don't go certain ways, things don't end up being perfect. So here we are. We're going to give the ranks. I will go ahead and go first since I kind of gave my thoughts first. I gave Heaven Beside You an 8.75. I bumped it up almost a full point. Thought this was a much better rendition. I missed what you guys said. I'll have to catch it back on the replay. But Nate, what did you rank it?
So on the initial rank, I gave it a 9. We gushed about Heaven Beside You while you were gone, just so you know. A lot of good things said, but I'm going to bump this up to a 9.75. It was near perfect, definitely.
Ty, what'd you give it, bud?
Nate and Alex and I, we all pretty much said 75% of the same shit.
All right.
So I started at a 9. I'm also going to bump mine up to 9.75. There's just, and I don't, and here's the sad thing. I don't know necessarily what that little zhuzh that would bring it up to a 10. I can't necessarily put my finger on what that is, but I can say that it's not there. So that's why I didn't bump it up the full point.
I can actually say one thing that it is for me that makes it from being a perfect.
Well, maybe
10.
it'll make sense for me.
It's actually, and not to shit on the roses that were just given to Jerry, but for some reason, Hell Within, the way he delivers that line,
It's a really low line.
kind of lackluster. Like
He's-
Hell Within, like
well,
he's not
he's-
really trying to do it as deep in hell within, like as sultry. He's maybe trying to find that sultriness, but it's not translating on the mic.
Well,
Okay.
it's I can pinpoint exactly what you're saying. It's flat. He's flat, and that's it's as someone who has a lower voice when I'm singing, it's hard to go down a step. It's hard to have a harmony where you're descending, when you're already at a low end register. That's flat. That's flat out what it is. I actually ranked this as a 9.5. I had the original rank for the studio as a 9.5. I kept it at a 9.5 because it's every bit as good as the original.
Yeah, see, and I think that's totally fair.
Okay, I have to ask something really quickly.
Did we all just die?
Is that Ruby or is that Juno or is that Brando? Is that one of yours running around? I can hear somebody in the background.
I hear it too.
Well, initially,
it's probably my kids screaming in the other room.
I hate to say this because I keep looking over and thinking it was my dog whining at me because like my hearing is that bad at times. Where I'm like, I couldn't tell if I was hearing somebody in the headphones or hearing something outside of the headphones.
Unfortunately, I feel like one of mine is throwing a fit because I'm hearing stomping and door slammings. So
okay, I'm not hearing that. I'm getting high end something.
Yeah, Juno is pretty much screaming at all times. So, like,
all right.
She just never stops.
Well,
in the
if
night
you could,
she screams. In the morning,
if you could
find-
if you could find a solution for the screams, because the youngest one of mine screams also, and it's just starting to say words. And his one right now is no, which is his favorite one. No, I mean,
Juno's is go.
Go. Okay.
She'll run up to you and just go. And it's like,
wait, you mean not?
You want me to go? And she'll be like, no. And it'll be like, you want you to go? And no. What?
You mean not unlike you were all yelling at me not 20 minutes ago?
If I could tell you what my kid is
'Cause
saying,
I'm pretty sure that point and go.
if I could tell you what my kid is saying and what he wants, I certainly would. And that's the name of the next song, Would. One of the
Yeah.
biggest.
Well done,
Another
Brando.
big. Hey, you know what? Segues are part of my specialty. But another one from Dirt here. Wood's a great song. We gushed about it on the original rank. This is one of the perfect 10s. I'm anxious to see whether or not that it keeps it, because it did for me. I love the performance here. I thought it was great, and I'm gonna pass the baton over to Tyler. What'd you think about Wood here?
Man, I loved it too, and this actually might be my favorite version. I like how the intro of this song is kind of extended a little bit, and then it's mostly instrumental.
Mhm.
I was kind of worried, especially when I went to listen back, about how the bass line would be featured, because that's such a important aspect of the original version of the song. And it's different. It's different for sure, but I think it's similar enough that I don't really need to worry about that aspect working or not. But the moment that Lane goes in, he just goes in, and it's maximum emotion for the rest of the song. I like how he's really stretching his range
Mhm.
in certain aspects. And then when he does the super high, his absolute highest note that he can do, there's kind of a little bit of humor with it sometimes at the end, because he's really stretching it out. So one of my absolute, sorry, just had a kid scream. One of my absolute favorite songs on this album, one of my absolute favorite versions of a song of all time.
Buckles.
So this is a 10 from everybody originally, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe so.
Why is everybody looking at me?
Well,
no, actually, this is fantastic. I love this. My first note for this is that fucking bass, though.
yeah.
That you hit it very well, Tyler. That the bass line from this song is iconic.
Yeah.
That bass line is something that you say Alice in Chains, people think of the bass lift to Wood. The drums, everything on there. The studio recording is spot on. The acoustic version hits every note pitch fucking perfect. It is, you hit it very well again with Lane's vocals. This is the best high end on the album for him. And he really does get to stretch out and put a lot of the vocal fry into that high end, which he doesn't do on a lot of the other songs, especially the choices for this album. The harmony works beautifully. The menace that you get from the studio cuts fully intact. Like, everything about this hits perfectly. To the extent where, like, yes, the original is a studio recorded on electric instruments, but if you had told me that this was written as an acoustic and this was the original version, wouldn't doubt it. It is perfectly translated over, and you get the same vibe from the song now as you do listen to the studio, and that's the highest compliment I can give. I've said, time and time again, when you're listening to something you rank as perfection, you have to be critical of it. This measures up. This is the first one that absolutely measures up to being that 10 out of 10 to me.
Right on, my man. And Nate.
Let's focus on Lane specifically in this song, because you guys have definitely hit on the amazingness of the bass line, the menacingness of the overall tone of the song that they still were able to maintain throughout for this tune. There are two things: 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Well, okay, this is really the second chorus that they do. Lane takes some integrity, like artistic integrity, like what's the word I'm looking for? He makes
Artistic liberties.
There you go. That's the word I'm looking for. He takes some liberties with the music, and he does a different, like, lower thing for a second, and then at the end of that, at like 2 minutes and 2 seconds, he does like a Michael Jackson, really
Yeah, that's what I was talking
super
about.
super high, right? Like that insaneness. But
He's
there's
having some fun
one
with it.
there's one thing I might ruin for you guys, because no one said it. I'm gonna point out the one thing that is super glaringly obvious. This is the only track on the entire album where they have some sort of effect on Lane's voice, and it's a
No, it's not.
phaser.
No, it's not.
that I have heard so far. Yeah, but there's a very subtle. It's not like a heavy effect. It's not something that's
Well, I'm not saying there's no effect. I'm saying it's not the only time on the album.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
But like in this, there specifically is just a very light phaser, and you
Where
can
at?
tell throughout the whole entire song in his voice, because in the
It's-
choruses, when you listen, they're not as sharp. They have this pan thing that kind of happens as he goes into them.
There's a little reverb added to it. Just
Yeah.
a slight bit of reverb to it. Although I will say that may be his voice, because he throws more vocal fry into this vocal than he does anything else on the album. So
That is
you
true.
don't get that sense anyplace else here, or you don't get anyplace else on this recording, this session, than you do here. So that may just be the way his vocals work. I could be completely wrong.
No, I do agree in some form. It's one of those things like we can't know because we weren't obviously there in the
Right.
moment.
Yeah,
But
I was
when
going back and
listening
listening to it
with
and I was like,
headphones, like you definitely can hear there is some subtle something that's happening. That's whether it's a phaser, a chorus, and there's some sort of effect that is adding to the thickness of his voice.
I was just going to point out that the very next track on Frogs, he's singing into a completely different microphone. Like he is singing into a talk box for parts.
Well,
of
yeah,
it.
clearly, because that's the effect for the song. But
Right.
we probably got to do this part where we break the rakes down.
Yep.
Yep. What'd you give it, bud?
10.
I gave it a 10 as well. Ty, did you keep it 10?
Tanner Bud.
And Buckles, I assume, did you break
Yes,
with us?
I gave it a 10.
All right.
I
all
gave it a
right.
10. We did get one.
All right. We got one.
We got one.
I'll take it. All right. But the next track is definitely a head scratcher because of the selection. We were pretty harsh on this song on the last album. This song is called Frogs. This is the song that was cut from the MTV airing of Unplugged. Frogs was on the self-titled, and I gave it the highest rank out of all of us. I gave it a 6.25. I do believe Buckles gave it a 2.
That's correct.
TY gave it a 3.5.
3.5. Yep.
And Nate gave it a 4.45. I will say, I wouldn't have picked this one. I think they did so because they wanted to kind of give some of the last album they did a little bit of love, and they picked some,
Yep.
some stuff off of
yeah.
there. However, I gave it a 6.25, and just like I said about Sludge Factory with the production values, the no doubling of the voice, it fits in a little bit better here. It doesn't get a drastic raise in score from me, but it's a little higher than before. It wasn't as much harsh on the ears as it was and unpleasant as last time. And so I'm anxious to hear what you guys got to say. And I'm going to start with TY on this one. 3.5.
Yep.
Does this get a substantial raise from you, or is this kind of still around where it was?
No, I would say it actually does get a substantial raise for me. I'll start with the stuff that I didn't care for within this song, and a lot of it is pretty much the same stuff that I didn't like the first go around. I don't think a 7-minute and 30-second long song is necessarily necessary when it's this kind of a song.
Mm-hmm.
You look back earlier in the album and say, well, Tyler, Rooster was 6 minutes and 41 seconds. That's only 30 seconds difference. Well, yeah, but Rooster that's a way better song. Like, just overall, the tone, the lyrics, the instruments, like every part of that song is better. Now, what I will say, as far as something that I really liked in this version, I listened to this song start to finish quite a few times, and I actually like how grimy the guitar is. I like how the drums and most of the percussion is super quiet. The bass line's not super up front. It's just all staying in the back. And I really like most of Lane's vocals about halfway in and towards the end of the song. But again, you want to talk about drones on songs that go
Yes.
on a little bit longer than they should. It's just, there's a lot of instrumental in the first half of the song that I do like, but it's kind of the same thing just over and over again. Well, cut that in half, and then you have something that might end up actually being a little bit more positive experience. So yeah, I mean, what did you give it the first time around, Brandon? 6.25?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I went from a 3.5 to a 6.75. So to me, that's a substantial jump. But still, it makes sense why this one is one of the ones that got cut.
Buckles, you gave it the lowest score on the original at a 2. Probably one of the lowest ranks anyone has given any Alice in Chains song.
I think the only thing lower than that was the non-song from
Oh, yeah.
from Facelift.
Mhm.
From Facelift. What was that?
I'd have to go back and look at my notes.
Then is that one that we refused to rank?
Yes, that is.
Yeah. Yeah, because we said it would just lower the overall score of Facelift. And that
Nate's
wasn't
the only
fair.
one that liked it.
Yeah.
Okay, yep, I remember. I do remember that. Yep. All right. I actually did what I normally don't do. We are very democratic here. But I put the damn hammer of justice down, and I said, no, not today, sir. And what I'm wondering is, Buckles, did you throw down your hammer of justice, and do you think Frogs doesn't really belong here at all? It needs to stay at the lower end of the forgotten realm of Alice in Chains, self-titled, or do you kind of agree with me and Tyler? Does this performance kind of redeem it, even if it's just minor?
Both. I'm going to say both. Two things. One, they could have cut the entire last 3 songs off the album. This album, I think they would have been better off.
I totally agree.
They could have cut it off after Wood, and this album would have been just fine.
I actually wish they would have possibly replaced at least this one with "We Die Young." Like I would have.
Oh,
Right. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, that would
Yes.
be cool.
The other half of that, you asked me if it's improved. Yes, it is improved, with the qualification that it's not hard to clear a bar that's laying on the ground. No, I did not like this at all. It feels odd. The droning and the atonal parts of this. I'm a Primus fan. I dig atonal shit, but atonal doesn't always work in acoustic. It doesn't always work on an inherently melodic device, and it does not work here to me at all. And honestly, I listened to the album and then went back and watched the video after the fact. If I hadn't seen the video, because there's no crowd interaction with the song at all. They don't cheer, they don't clap, they don't do anything. Between that and the weird vocal that you get when Lane's singing into that other mic, if you hadn't told me this was live, I would not have known this was a live song. Not because there's no production to it or anything, just because it's nothing. There's nothing there. There's no crowd, there's nothing to make it feel live. And then Lane's other vocal makes it feel, okay, there's something off about this, that they've added something to it maybe. Oh, he was just singing into a different mic. Okay, I get it. So yeah, this was live. I wouldn't have known it otherwise. I didn't like the original version much at all. I don't care much for this. Is it better? It's more discernible. It's shorter. There's slightly less droning. So yes, it's an improvement by default.
Right on. Nate.
Oh boy. So Buckle said a lot of my thoughts. The biggest word I wanted to use was droning. This is 7.5 minutes of droning. It drones on and on and on and on and on into oblivion. And let me just tell you, my friends, you can slap glitter on a turd and you'll still have the same smell. It's not going to go away. So this is, this is not going to trick me into liking Frogs anymore. Then initially I gave it a 4.45 because I was being saucy. I might give it a 4.15 this time just because I'm pissed that they decided to add it to this album, just because, listen, you have a lot of really good things going. And I'll slightly disagree with Buckles saying of the last 3 tracks, I think Frogs could have been replaced or removed entirely. And the bonus track They could have done anything totally left field. It wouldn't have mattered. Whatever they did, it didn't matter. That bonus at the end. But the last song, they picked the perfect song. I mean, come on. The title, it is just too perfect. But Frogs, nah. It's a horseshit.
Nah, brah.
Nah. So, Nate, you gave it a 4.15. Buggles, what did you give it?
I gave it a 3.
A 3. So, that knocked down your overall album score tremendously.
Yes, I don't doubt it.
It bumped that sucker down. Tyler, you said a 6.75.
Correct.
Mine was a 6.25 originally, and I bumped it up to a 7. The next track,
sweet.
yeah, so just a little bit. As I said,
About as long as the song is what you thought it was worth.
yeah. Well,
You gave it a rank a minute.
as I listened to it, I wasn't looking forward to it, but then it's a long song, but I didn't really felt like it. I was lost in it to a point. Like I didn't feel like that it really dragged on as long as it did the last time. Like I felt like it again with their presentation and their production here. I felt like it belonged a little bit more. Although I do wish they would have not included it. Like 7 is probably my lowest score on this album, and this song gets it. So yeah. The next track, Over Now, which is the Frogs and Over Now, where that was the closing tracks from the last album. And Over Now, we all kind of liked it for the most part. And I thought it was, again, copy and paste what I said, Sludge Factory and Frogs. Get rid of that vibe, get rid of the double vocals on Lane, and it is instantly more palatable. So given what I gave it before, it almost got the same. It almost got the same treatment as what song did I do the same? Was it Angry Chair or something like that? Gave it the exact same rank. That almost got it here, but because the simple fact that I'm like, all right, take away what I didn't like from before. Now it's an improvement. Well, how much of improvement? Not very much. Like it's a 0.25 improvement. Right. I gave this one an 8.75. I will start with Buckles this time. What did you think about Over Now on this compared to what closed out the last album?
Step down, honestly.
You think so?
Yeah. It honestly has a different feel. This feels a little poppier to me somehow. Like it feels a little more upbeat, whereas the original track is more melancholy. And I think it loses a little bit because of that. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it's bland. It's so bland the whole way through to me. I feel like you hit it kind of on the head with when you mentioned that they were wanting to include some stuff in the recent album. In that, if you look at, say, the S&M album from Metallica, mm-hmm. that they include a lot of load and reload on there because it came out around the same time frame.
Sure.
And that's kind of the same vibe I get. Like, if you're going to do a live album like this, if you want to get all the best stuff on here, there's many better things you can include. But because the most recent thing that they had done and the headspace that they were in was the self-titled album, even at a 2-year mm-hmm. difference, I just you could have included Heaven Beside You and then not included anything else on self-titled album. I think you'd probably been better off. This could have been better as We Die Young. This could have been better as Man in the Box. As an acoustic.
Yeah, I would have loved
that. Is the one omission for the big, mm-hmm. from the big 5 perfect scores and the hits, playing the hits, that I always wondered why they didn't do an acoustic Man in the Box. And maybe they did it because they figured everybody would expect it.
Possibly. It's entirely possible. We won't get an answer on it, but
probably not unless one of us is able to corner Jerry Cantrell and hold him at gunpoint and said, "Why didn't you play Man in the Box and Unplugged? I gotta know. And why did you do Frogs?" And then
what the fuck? Why do you love Frogs so much?
Like, honestly, you're just gonna have the gun to his head, and all of a sudden you're just gonna hear me go, "Frogs."
All right.
Yeah. So it's so bland to me that it's a step back because it's nothing to me.
Nate, I'll let you go next.
Okay, I really like Over Now. I gushed about it on the album.
Mm-hmm.
I gush about it here because, again, it elevates because you're getting the rawness of them performing it. Yeah, it's a little hoppy, but they nail those harmonies. There is such powerfulness in Lane's voice when he's reaching for those high hitting notes in the chorus. Jerry's deep vocals giving it the real foundation it needs. They're really having fun on this track again. This is again, they're showing like, look how good we can be. Like, we're just jamming and having a blast. And
that's kind of where I feel like it was a little poppier. It was a little more upbeat than the original. Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's just one of those, like, when you're doing a live performance of a song, sometimes the integrity of that original song changes. Look at Metallica as an example. When they wrote Jump in the Fire, they were on standard guitars. Now it's like what F flat minor guitars they have to use because their voices have shifted so much and they can't sing that high. So it's like the factors, the different things, whatever it is, there's the spot where the acoustic guitar is really getting beautifully plucked by Jerry in the We Pay Our Debt Sometime, and that song that just hits differently in the acoustic version for me. It did get the bump of bumps for me, if as it were. So just know that in the coming ranks. Who do we got left to discuss and bring their thoughts? TY?
TY.
I won't take up a bunch of time because Nate hit pretty much everything that I was going to say. The one thing that I will say, I know for a fact the one piece of the puzzle that overall or ultimately made me increase my number by quite a bit. And it's if you go right at like 3 minutes in, that little guitar solo that Jerry does right after the last time he says, pay our debt sometime, you know, the one that Nate was just talking about, that fucking solo is so awesome. And it sounds so good that, you know, if the rest of the song was dog shit, I don't care anymore at this point because I just love that little solo so much.
Beautiful sounding dog shit.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought of frogs.
Oh, all right. TY, would you give it?
Just one moment. I want to see. Okay, I went from a 7 to a 9.75.
Wow,
That's how far I
went. The jump. Nate, what did you give it, pal?
A perfect 10.
Perfect 10? Buckles, are you going to bring them back down to reality?
Yes, I am. And even I'm going to point something out that my original score that I was going to give it, Tyler, just because you mentioned that guitar solo that I hadn't really thought about, I actually raised the score I was going to give it.
Nice.
It's still a 7.
Hey, but dude,
but yeah, it was going to be a 6, but no, I'll give it a 7. I'll give it a 7.
Now
that guitar solo is just so nice.
So that guitar solo, I don't know who plays the guitar solo, but this we haven't mentioned the actual cast of the band here. They actually did have an additional guitar player. It was Scott Olson. Of course, the band is Lane, Jerry, Mike, and Sean. I
didn't even think about that.
He doesn't play on every song, though, does he?
I don't know if he does. It says that he plays acoustic rhythm and solo guitar and acoustic bass on "Killer Is Me," which is the last song. So it'd be neat to go back and watch the video and see who plays the solo of that, because I honestly can't remember now for the life of me.
Yeah.
But I gave it an 8.5 on the original, and I said it didn't get much. It's 8.75 from me, which I mean, still across the board here with the raising and then and then the lowering. It still scores better than the original. So that's something to look at too. On the original, the average song score was 8.18, and on here it's 8.87. So even though Buckles I don't like it as much, everyone else liked it a little bit better just to raise it up. And Frogs on the original got an average of 4.05, and on this one a 5.22. Ever so slightly. These are some slightly better Frogs.
These Frogs would have been better played with Beavis and Butthead, personally.
Well, there you go.
Jerry.
Jerry plays the solo. All right, cool. Jerry, good solo on by Jerry, man. Jerry's a fucking treasure.
Yeah, dude, it's nice.
Dude, I tell you what, these albums here that we've ranked with Lane, they're special. And I know that even I haven't dived into the last 2 albums. I did dive into the first one that they did when they came back. That's what's going to be special.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's going to be what's so special about diving into those later records is because they're even though they're Alice and everything, we're getting more Jerry driven with this. So it's like it's going to be some great stuff to listen to, even if it is like some people consider the revival of Alice. It could have been named a completely different band, and it still would have succeeded. But I can see why they didn't. I can see why. You know what?
I'm glad they didn't.
We were brothers. Yeah. We lost our brother, and we're continuing in honor of him. And it's evolved because there's such a time span in between '94 and then 2007 or 8 when Black Gives Way to Blue comes out, that they are different people. Like, but by the time that album comes out, they're not the same people they were before. So they're different. Lane's gone. It is a new feel, and I'm anxious to get there, but we're not there yet. We have the last song here so far for Unplugged, "Killer Is Me," which is the only new song here, and they closed with it. Of course, they kind of tease after Over Now that they're done, and then but then they have one more. "Killer Is Me." I might have I don't know. I'm not sure. Nate says that title wise, definitely was ominous. Upon listening to it, maybe I need to listen to it again. I felt a little lost in it, and it didn't really hit for me as a song. I didn't hate it, but unfortunately, this is unfortunate, but because it didn't really hit me, I gave it the same rank as I gave Frogs. I gave it a 7. and granted, you know, I felt like Frogs belonged a little bit better here than the last one, but this one just didn't hit for me. And I'll let Nate go first. Nate, do you feel the same, or do you like it a little bit better than I did?
See, I feel like the song had no resonating quality because there's not like any single hook to hold on to that's gonna like pull you back time and time again. There's some cool parts of the song. Obviously, there's some really nice dual harmonies happening and stuff. But, big old but. Humongous butt. It just doesn't have that addictiveness, I think is the word. There's nothing to sink your teeth into that makes you want to go back and listen to the song. You're just like, okay, cool, it's a cool track. I think it is interesting though. The Killer Is Me is the last new track that they released together as a group, and technically Lane is his own killer. As dark as that is, I mean, he kind of carved his own demise.
And it's a Jerry song too. Like Jerry wrote the lyrics. Jerry, so like in some ways, I don't know. It just insane the mind in the name of me. Can't find the time to let things be. Like, even though there's no hook, there's some really
heavy lyrics too.
Yes, and
true.
So it's like, I dig that, but unfortunately, like I just couldn't get myself into the song any more than what I did. Buckles, do you feel the same with that?
Yes. I gave it a 5. Honestly, I felt like it's just messy. There's not much. There's no hook to it. There's not really much of anything. Like Nate said, to sink your teeth into. It feels like a really weak ending, not just for a live album or an acoustic album, for both, really. You would think you would want to end on a really strong note, and they really don't. It's kind of interesting to end on a brand new single. You don't see that very often. There's a lot of that atonal stuff that just does not feel right. I'm wondering, looking at my notes here, I'm wondering if I've judged the last 3 a little harshly, because my last note was weirdly atonal, still better than Frogs.
So I mean, let's be honest, it is better than Frogs.
It is, but maybe I'm letting that my dislike of that song color the rest of it. But
you want to know something that's really sad about Frogs? Frogs has 7,820,974 plays on Spotify. The Killer Is Me only has 5,326 plays, 871. So there are legitimate people out here that are like, yeah, dude, I'm going to check out this fucking song. It's called Frogs.
I see what I can think of, honestly, is that somebody played the album, played it, and listened to the whole thing through, got to Frogs, and went, okay, fuck all this. And just stopped. It just stopped. The question would be how many listens for Over Now?
And the crazy thing,
815,416.
Okay.
and on the unplugged version, that is more plays than Angry Chair.
Mm-hmm.
That's odd. That's very strange.
Well,
Over Now's a good song. Buckles, fuck off.
Over Now was the single. I forgot to mention that.
I gave it a
Yeah.
7. God damn it! I gave Over Now a 7.
Leave me alone, he says. Tyler.
Old man yells at cloud.
Yep. Tyler, you're the last one to go, man. Killer is me.
I you know, like Nate kind of brought it up. I really appreciate the symbolism here. I don't really dig this song, but there are things that I do appreciate about it. I do really enjoy Jerry throughout the song. I just kind of feel this song kind of feels, and I'm not a musician, so it's kind of hard for me to articulate, but I kind of feel like the song is just too loose. It's not held together
It's
very
messy.
well.
Yeah.
I feel like
Do you think, not to cut in, but just
No, you're good.
But just to add a thought, do you think that's because that this is the one song that wasn't recorded or established before, that they never played before, maybe in a full live setting that maybe they only jammed
Okay.
on? Maybe
Yeah.
that's why. Which is funny because then you have Metallica did the same thing with S&M for both No Leaf Clover and Minus Human, and those sound way more rehearsed and put together than maybe this does. But maybe that's
Well,
just
you
that's
also
just
have
apples
also
to
have the
oranges
symphony.
too. Yeah.
You also have the symphony with that too.
They
That's a
need to
big
be
part of
prepared
it.
for that. Yes, like apples to oranges here, So
But
I
no,
would-
no, that's an interesting take that I didn't look at it from that perspective, and that maybe makes more sense. So kind of maybe not judging that as harshly, because I wasn't thinking about how, yeah, I mean, imagine how many times probably had they played this song.
I would be
before
curious
that.
to know. I would be curious to know as to when it was written, because with it not being on anything previous, with it not being on the EPs or a demo or anything that we're aware of, was this written specifically for this performance? And
Could've
if so, this is after a 2-year layoff.
mm-hmm.
Maybe this is 2 years after the self-titled album, which we've all kind of gone on the record as saying that it's not their
Great.
strongest work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a continuation. It's the next step after that.
Mhm.
So maybe this is just the headspace that they were in. Maybe this is what,
Yeah.
if they had continued to make new music, would we have heard more like this? Would Killer Is Me be if Lane hadn't passed away at this point, if there had been another album after this with Lane, would we have heard more of a continuation of that self-titled sound and this sound here? And I really wonder if they had the thought of, well, we have this performance. We haven't done anything in 2 years. Everything we've played so far, even the newer stuff, has been around for 2 years. Let's give them something new,
Mhm.
but we haven't written anything in 2 years. Maybe there's a little bit of that to it.
I thank you so much, Brando, and thank you, Buckles, for that, because that perspective totally changes the way that I kind of feel about this song. Even with all that, it's still, and I don't think it's necessarily me judging it too critically. I just think that, this is the perfect, and obviously we've said it with Frogs and stuff like that, but this is the perfect. Hi, sweetie. This is. I got a gremlin trying to break in here. This is the perfect example of, we should have left this one out. So
You could delete that one.
yeah, we can delete that one. I'm gonna give this one, just because there are parts that I enjoy, 6.5.
And Buckles, you gave that a 5.
I gave it a 5. It's very, very much. It is a song.
Okay. And Nate, what'd you give it, pal?
Hello,
6
this
even.
is song.
6.
This is song in Soviet Russia.
I gave it a 7. As I said, same as Frogs, and that puts up a wrap on this one. My average score was at 8.69. Nate, yours was at 8.97. Tyler, 9.32.
Dude, I love it.
And Buckles, 8.26 with an average master rank of 8.81, which, if this counted, would be the highest overall Alice in Chains rank.
But it's essentially a greatest hits.
It kind of
How-
yes.
Yeah.
How much higher is it than Dirt? Out of curiosity.
Okay. Doop 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 doop. What is Dirt? Dirt is 8.4 8.49. So
Very close.
yeah, I mean, yeah, but like what you'll see is that when you start putting in ranks from 4 people for multitude of different songs, you'll be surprised with how little that score changes as you go along.
Let me ask you one other thing, and you mentioned it when I gave the ranking of how far that dropped my average. If you had taken Frogs out, how badly did that drop me? Out of complete curiosity.
So Frogs was a 3 for you,
Mhm.
okay, so that raises it to an 8.7. But
Okay.
before that, you were at a 9.25.
And then Frogs came along.
And then over now you gave a 7, and then you gave that a 5, so it dropped it all the way down to 8.5. So the last 3
That
songs,
sounds
yeah,
about
you
right.
really didn't like the last 3 songs. But of course, the highest ranking song was Wood at a perfect score, and then the lowest one was Frogs at a 5.22. Guys, I really enjoyed this episode and this look at. I love it when we get a chance, with the Metallica and with the S&M. Metallica's done acoustic sets too, but we didn't rank them. They do it all the time with their charity, and they do a mixture of covers and their tunes, which is really cool. You get to hear them do a Turn the Page acoustic. You get to hear them do Deep Purple acoustic. So really different stuff. From here, got to hear some of the greatest hits, as we said. Some of the big top 10s, top 5s for us were here. And then a couple of others thrown in for good measure or bad measure, depending on your viewpoint of the matter. Frogs. But guys, thank you guys so much for joining us once again here. Before we say goodbye, next week here on the show, we're going to be discussing Music Bank, which was a compilation. You want to talk about greatest hits? Music Bank was a collection of the greatest hits, but it also included several never-before-released songs and demos. And I asked right before, I said, are you guys willing to do demos and some other stuff on here that was never released? And we said, rank them all, damn it. So that's what we're doing. I'm gonna run down again. So these songs are in order on the Music Bank, but just stay with me here. I'm gonna go through it. We're gonna be covering Get Born Again, I Can't Have You Blues, which is a demo, What You Gonna Do, which is a demo.
Brother.
Which would be hilarious if that would have been the track before the song Brother.
What you gonna
Okay.
do?
Social Parasite, which is a demo. Queen of the Rodeo, which is live. So we're going to get another live rank track. Killing Yourself, which is a demo. Fear the Voices. Lying Season. What the Hell Have I? A Little Bitter. And then the very last song that we will ever rank with Lane Staley is called Died.
Oof. By the way, I figured out the Don song. You and I, you refused to rank.
Oh, is that one
It
where they
was not-
switched? They switched
It was not
instruments.
on. It was not on. It was not on Facelift.
It was on SAP. It was on SAP. Okay.
It's Love Song,
Yep.
which, if I remember correctly, I ranked as I gave it a score of 75 Q Texas vomit emoji.
Well, guys, those are the songs that we're going to check out on Music Bank. I'm going to put out a post on social media. So check us out on there at Rank 'Em All Podcast on all the social medias. I'm going to put the list there. That way you guys can follow along and listen to the greatest hits if you haven't already. And then, of course, check out these new songs with us. But just as a reminder, I'm going to send that out. But fellas, Nate, Tyler, Buckles, thank you once again for joining me here for the Alice in Chains Rank 'Em All. We're going to get back into this next week with Music Bank. And until then, I guess put that in your bank and invest it. That is a bad joke. That's a bad joke.
Hey, well, at least this podcast is over now.
It is over now.
Ooh.
And well, next week we'll get born again when we dive into Music.
Frogs.
Frogs. Later on, guys, I've been Brando, Nate, Tyler, Buckles. We've been Rank 'Em All. Check us out next week, guys. Until then, see you then. Rock on. Rank on. Later on.